The 1,000 years. The 1,000-year cycle. Did you see it? I had this pretty one made for you. It's pretty, isn't it? No, it's not. The 1,000-year cycle. Now, I want to talk about this for a moment. I've shown you this book many times before. I'm not selling any books. I'm not promoting anybody's books. This is absolutely important for what we're doing today. Grant Jeffrey's first book, Armageddon, Appointment with Destiny. It was first published in 1988. There was discrepancy between 88 and 89. I checked it this week. I went on Google, I checked it. It's 1988. That's when I got it. I got it right at the end of 1988. This amazing book that opened up the secret door to the times of God to me. Many other things, but that most of all. Now, this is interesting. Need my golden glasses here. Very interesting. It says here, recommendations, endorsements, Hal Lindsey Ministries, Jack van Impe. Oh, I pronounced it incorrectly. How do you pronounce it? Van Impe. It's Van Impe. Okay. Jack van Impe Ministries. He was well in times on television, long time. Then I see other people, for instance, Lou Aranoika, the vice president of Bantam Books and the New York Times, October 22nd, 1990. So many people endorse. Go on. Do you know that this man wrote over 30 books? You know that he sold over 7 million books during his lifetime. I'm sure they're still selling now. A lot of them. Unfortunately, he passed away at an early age of 63 years of age in 2012. Now, I'm looking at this book. See, many times people think that things that I teach, that's Gabriel's teachings. That's my viewpoint on things. So here is chapter 15 of Grant Jeffrey's book. I'm going to show you a lot of things today. Chapter 15, prophetic time indicators. Hope you can see it. It says prophetic time, indications. And so the first thing he talks about, right here, you might not be able to see it at the top. I'll just point it out for you. One day is with the Lord as 1,000 years. 1,000 years is with the Lord as one day. Is this better here? Okay. That's the first thing, the first prophetic time indicator that he teaches. And then he shows you, has a diagram here at the bottom. This to show you from, I'm going to tell you about it real quickly. It says from 1 BC, Feast of Tabernacles, the birth of Christ, which we know was October 21st of the year 1 BC, Saturday, the birth of the Lord. So that was the beginning of the 5th day. Then he shows you the 5th day and the 6th day and the 7th day. Is that right? Yeah, 5th, 6th, and 7th. The 7th day is the millennium. That's the 7,000 year. Adam to Abraham, 2,000 years. Abraham to Christ, 2,000 years. So it's 4,000. So then day 5 from the birth of Christ to AD 1,000, day 5. Then day 6, AD 1,000 to AD 2,000. All right, I have to show you that. Anyway, so now, he is not the exception when it comes to teaching the 1 day, 1,000 year. 1,000 year, 1 day. Moses was number 1. Peter was number 2. There are many, many others in here. And I'm going to read you some here. I'm going to read you of this real quickly here. There is a commentary on the Talmud by a Rabbi Ketina. So this is the Jews. This is Jewish. The world ends 6,000 years and 1,000 year in addition for the reign of the Messiah. As our 7 years, every year is an extra one, so there will be an extra millennium, a 7th millennium. 7,000 years in total. And the last one is the one that the Lord, the Messiah, alone will reign supreme. Then somebody that was important in the church in the 1500s, listen to this, Bishop Latimer. Bishop Latimer, writing in the year 1552, had a similar understanding of this 1,000-year period, which will start around the year AD 2000, he said. The world was ordained to endure, as all learned men affirm, and so for 6,000 years. Now, of that number, at his time, now you see, there had passed 5,552 years. So, as of now, in his time, there remains 1,552 years, so that will bring us to the year 2000. So there's only 448 years left. There's only 448 years left. And this man makes a point of it and teaches this. Telling people how important it is, because a day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years is as a day. And he's saying again, he says, when we get to the year 6,000, that's the end of regular time, then Christ will take over and he will rule the earth for 1,000 years. So we got Moses, we got Peter, we got Rabbi Katina, that's 3. Bishop Latimer, that's 4. Now, even during the Reformation, there were Christian scholars who understood that the sabbatical week of 7,000 years indicates that that is the time of the last days and would occur accordingly. Therefore, we understand now. This is 1988. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is the revised edition of 1997. 97 if you want to, although this was in the first book, the first edition, 88. Therefore, I understand and come to the conclusion that the return of Jesus would take place in our generation. This was 1997. This was 3 years before the end of 2000, AD 2000, 6,000 since Adam. So now that was what he was adding to it, the author. Now, it's worth listening to this. One of the oldest books in my library is the chronology on the Old and New Testament, written by Archbishop Usher in 1650. This is a Latin volume which he had access to many of the church manuscripts, some of it that survived and burned during the time of the Irish Wars. I don't even know when that was. Didn't have time to look that up. But in his time, he had access to some of the oldest manuscripts that were then still available and before it was consumed by fire. And he says this. He says, therefore, we understand that even in the early church, they counted the time according to what Peter had taught. A day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years is as a day. Therefore, normal time will expire at AD 2000. 5. Now, here's another guy, another rabbi, Rabbi Elias, who lived 200 years before Christ. So now this is 200 BC. Here's what he said. He said, the world will endure 6,000 years. 2,000 years before the law, 2,000 under the law, and 2,000 under the Messiah. It's right here. Right here. Right here. You can come look at it. Right here. Man. This is the man's name. Rabbi Elias, who lived 200 years before Christ. He said this: the world endures 6,000 years, 2,000 before the law, 2,000 under the law and 2,000 under the Messiah. This is a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, who spoke this 200 years before the birth of Christ. All right, now, then there's a Christian scholar, Lactantimus. Now, he lived AD 300. So he lived 300 years after the birth of Christ. The previous guy lived 200 years before the Lord was born. So this is AD 300. So what is he saying? He had a similar view in the 7th volume of his book of Divine Institutions. And he wrote the following: because all the works of God were finished in 6 days, it is necessary that the world should remain in this state for 6 ages, that is 6,000 years. Because having finished the works, he rested on the 7th day and blessed it. That's the Lord. It is therefore necessary that at the end of the 6,000th year, all wickedness should be abolished out of the earth, and justice shall reign through the Lord for 1,000 years. Now, back to the author. One more paragraph here. Writings could be prolonged in great numbers. For many other early church fathers, I cannot even pronounce these names. Victornius, Bishop of Pertu, Hippolamius, Justin Martyr, and Matthias, to illustrate. These are church fathers of the early centuries. They all had to believe that the millennium, would commence upon the completion of 6,000 years from Adam. This widespread evidence, together with 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8, is a strong argument, or proof if you would, that this belief was the genuine teaching of the apostles and of the early church, even from the beginning for several centuries following, that they can confirm it. It is unfortunate, but perhaps provincial, that changes in the calendar make it impossible to accurately calculate or with precision when the 2,000 year period will actually end, except to note that it must occur around AD 2000, which is that it would occur in our generation and in our lifetime. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I can go back here to somebody like my spiritual father, Dr. Hagen, Oral Roberts. Talk about the guys, Hal Lindsey and those guys too. Lester Summerall, Smith Wigglesworth, previous generation. Most of the church fathers of revival in the 20th century, if not all of them, proclaimed the same message. And all of them were of the understanding and seem to continually confirm that we're looking at the year AD 2000 as the turning point in the history of the church, but also of all humankind that dwell on the earth. It is clearly, according to the scripture, Moses in the Old Testament, Peter in the time of the church, and all these other examples and teachings, and just about anybody that you can mention that is a known or was a known church leader or had a known ministry or television ministry, were all of the same conviction and believe accordingly that a day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years is as a day, and that is the history of mankind, 7,000 years. And that some